Hey guys, it's Olivia. I'm going to send some feels your way from the other side of the screen. And that's because today I'm doing a book review on The Fault in Our Stars by Mr. Life Ruiner John Green. This book, I've heard, I have heard nothing but good things about this book right here. It's gotten massive reviews from massive newspapers and massive critics. For my fellow fangirls, I have heard that when you read this book, your insides will be ripped apart, your heart will split in two and fly across the room, your intestines and everything inside you'll want to rip them out because you're so incredibly sad with yourself. And after reading this book, I can confirm that all of that I just said was 100% accurate. So, as you can tell, if you're not into sad stories, don't read The Fault in Our Stars. I began reading The Fault in Our Stars this past Thursday night. Around midnight, I couldn't fall asleep, so I was like, let's read some Fault in Our Stars. Yeah. So I read some Fault in Our Stars because it had been sitting on the bookshelf for 2 months because I was reading the Mortal Instrument series. And I started reading it and I got like 5 chapters in and then I was way too tired to continue, so I just continued. And the first 5 chapters I was like, this is not as sad as everybody says it is. And I mean, even if it is about a girl named Hazel who has cancer and this guy comes into the picture, that kind of a thing, it wasn't as sad as I thought it was going to be. I did not realize how wrong I was until I continued reading 2 days later. I continued reading it and read it that day. I finished reading it that day. I can honestly say this is one of the most heart-wrenching stories you'll ever read. I think, I cried with the Hunger Games trilogy. That's just because I'm a fangirl. That's just what happens. I cried with the Mortal Instruments, and it was just because of the fangirl reflex. That's just what we do when we read stories. But with this book, this life-ruining book, it's different. There's one chapter where one of the characters gets sick again out of remission, and I literally cried from that chapter to the very end of the book, which was it took me about 25 minutes to read the rest of that book, so I cried for 25 minutes. And you just straight up just cry. You just cry. I mean, I can't explain to you. I find it very interesting that people my age read this book and are so interested in it and are so touched by it, because usually people my age don't really care about those things, like, not to sound insincere or anything, but people my age usually don't care about those things. And I mean, not the cancer part, just about like stories about people that they usually don't care because they play games where they play video games all the time where they shoot people, and so they're not very sincere people. And so after seeing so many fangirls on Facebook pages and stuff say, you've got to read The Fault in Our Stars, you have to read this book, you've got to read this book, read The Fault in Our Stars, you're going to cry, read The Fault in Our Stars by John Green, do it. And so I was like, okay, fine. So when I trusted them and I read the book, and I should not have trusted them. John Green obviously wants to ruin the feelings and the insides of every teenage girl out there, so thank you, John Green, for ruining my life. Obviously, my life wasn't ruined enough for you after I read The Hunger Games and the Mortal Instruments, so thank you for ruining it more. So, for those of you who don't know what this book is about, it's about a girl named Hazel Grace Lancaster, and she's 16 years old, I think? 16 years old, and she has terminal cancer. She's got lung cancer, and, she can't breathe, that kind of a thing. And throughout the whole story, she meets this guy named Augustus Waters, who John Green quotes, Augustus comes in and rewrites her whole life story, and that's really what he does. This was my reaction after I finished reading the book. Oh, Augustus's letter. Oh God. Oh jeez. No, that's not how it ends. No. Oh God. That's about as life-ruining as it gets when you react to a book that way. I mean, honestly, this book is one of the most non-fictional, fictional stories I've ever read. it's, I mean, because this is a story that could possibly become true. You know, it's not based on a true story, but I bet you somewhere out there who has cancer has the same exact story that she does. And so I guess it's sort of like it's a non-fiction fiction story in some ways if you think about it. Because this story was made up, but it could be a real story. John Green is now, even though I've only read one of his books, John Green's probably one of my most favorite authors I've ever read. You know, Suzanne Collins. I've been reading the Berenstain Bears. The Berenstain Bears. I've been reading those books since I was really little, so I didn't really think about it when I picked up the Hunger Games trilogy that was her. And after reading it, I looked it up and I was like, oh my god, she did this? And so I basically have been reading Suzanne Collins my entire life. So obviously Suzanne Collins is going to be one of my favorite authors now. Cassandra Clare, one of my favorite authors because I read 5 of her books from her series. But this is just one book. And John Green is one of my most favorite authors now. It's one book and he made that big of an impact on me. The story is so truthful and it's not, I mean, I love her attitude towards it. Like, John Green makes it seem like he's both Hazel and Augustus, because, I mean, John Green's not a chick, and he has the feelings of Hazel down so well, and it just makes me think, are you a chick and a guy? And, I mean, not in that way, but you know what I'm talking about. It's really shocking how intact he is with both the genders' feelings in the book, and it makes you feel like he has had cancer once in his lifetime, but he never has, you know, so he's got the feelings of a cancer patient down so well it's not even funny. He is one of the most poetic, sarcastic, comedic, most amazing, impactful authors ever. If you read the book, Hazel has like this amazing point of view on cancer. She has cancer. She knows she's gonna die. She knows she's not gonna live to do all the things she wants to do. She doesn't know when she's gonna die, but she knows that it's going to be sooner than she wants it to be. And she knows that her parents are gonna have to move on without her, and she knows that possibly her friends are gonna have to move on without her. Possibly a boy might have to move on without her. And that's what I mean. She never expects that this one thing that happens towards the end of the book is going to happen before it happens to her, you know? And just the entire book, you know, she's a cancer patient. Cancer kids aren't normally that optimistic about everything. Like, in the book, she describes cancer as, she describes, you know, her mom thinks that depression and stuff are side effects of cancer. And she's like, no, depression and you know, self, I don't know what she said it, but that those things are side effects of dying, not cancer. Like, you don't die from cancer, you die from human existence. You die from the knowing of being a human, that kind of a thing. Like, she's so optimistic about it, and she sees it in a way that probably nobody else in the world sees it. She's just like, I'm not dying from cancer, I'm dying from existing, because every human dies. I just happen to have the possibility to die sooner than everybody else. You know, she doesn't think that, oh, cancer's gonna kill me. No, she just thinks that life's gonna kill her. Near the end of the book, Hazel doesn't die. You don't know what happens. You don't understand what's gonna happen. And Augustus Waters, obviously, if you have read the book, I'm sorry if this is a spoiler for you guys, but I can't do a review without spoiling it. But Augustus Waters, you know, he's the love interest, and their love, it's so pure for such a teenage relationship, and it's incredible. And then for those of you who have read the book, you know that Augustus goes into recurrence, and so he gains cancer back, but he has cancer all over his body, so it's terminal cancer. Straight up, he's gonna die. And they give him like a life period length, and obviously towards the end of the book, I was not expecting this at all, but Augustus is the one who dies and not Hazel. And I'm like, what? And Augustus goes through all these things that, he meets Hazel, and then he figures out that he's in recurrence and that he's gonna die, but he uses the remainder of his strength and his health to make Hazel's life as great as it can be for his period of life that he has left. And he gives her, she says this in the book, he basically gives her forever in a matter of a few months. And it's, oh my god, and a really cool aspect in the book that I didn't really think about happening, or think about really in the book at all, was Hazel's favorite book in the book is An Imperial Affliction by Peter Van Houten. And in An Imperial Affliction, it's about this girl named Anna who has terminal cancer, and the very end of the book, it cuts off mid-sentence because Anna either dies or gets too sick to finish the story. And so Hazel, has to go meet Peter, and Peter turns out to be a turd face. And it's really cool because that's how The Fault in Our Stars ends. It ends with, it's not mid-sentence exactly, it finishes the sentence, but it doesn't finish the story. You don't know what happens to Hazel. You don't know whether she dies or not. You don't know what her parents end up doing. You don't know whether they get a divorce or they stay together. You don't know what Augustus's family does. You don't know what becomes of Isaac. You don't know what becomes of Caitlin. That kind of thing. You don't know what happens to any of the characters. And at the end of towards the end of the book, he asks Hazel and Isaac to write a eulogy for him, and he's going to have a pre-funeral because he wants to be at his funeral. He wants to hear what other people have to say about him. He wants to know what impact he had on another person's life. And I love that Augustus did that. I love that he wants to go out as his he wants to go out with a life that he did something with. And whether he's a huge hero in the Civil War or not, he was a huge hero to very specific people, plus his parents. He was a hero to Hazel. He made Hazel's life 20 times better in a matter of months. He made Isaac's life better by being a good friend. He made his parents' life better by being an amazing son. That kind of a thing. And I just love the whole book. I just love the entire book. Every aspect about that book is incredible. I cannot name one thing that's wrong with it, except for the fact that it will tear your insides out and fling them towards the wall. It's good. So I definitely recommend The Fault in Our Stars to all people who don't really mind sad books, because there's also comedy in it. So if you like comedy, go for it. If you like romance, definitely read it. But if you're not into sad things, don't read it. I give this definitely a 5 out of 5 stars. This was incredible. If I could give it a 10, I would, but it's 5 stars only. So 5 out of 5 stars. There's a movie coming out, and I'll make a video talking about the casting decisions coming up soon, and the link where you guys can go buy The Fault in Our Stars on Amazon will be down below. So yeah, I recommend you guys please go read this. It's amazing. It'll change your life. So I'll see you guys soon. Bye.